Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Danny and this is Project Fern. In today's video we're cracking on with the Berlingo still. We've got disc and pads and drop links to do today. So let's get started, get the car jacked up, get the wheel off and have a look at the state of the disc and pads because they are pretty shocking. We've got the brand new set of disc and pads here. I've gone with Padgid. I'm a bit disappointed really because the pads haven't come with new shims. So I'm going to have to clean up the old ones and reuse them. And I've also got a pair of drop links to go on today. As you can see with the brake discs here, they're badly scored, badly lipped. On the inner edge, they're pretty much non-existent. There's probably half the disc left on the back there. And even though these calipers look in pretty bad condition, everything seems to be working fine. But we'll soon tell when we take this caliper off and see if the piston goes back okay and the seal's okay. I don't know if you can see around the back. I'll try and get the camera around. The bleed valve there, you can just about make it out. It's not had a cover on it and it's also quite corroded. So I've ordered a new set of bleed valves as well for this. I'm not going to bother with them today because obviously I don't need to bleed the brakes, sorry. But when I do the rear axle, I'm going to have the brake lines disconnected and stuff. So at that point I'm going to switch these out when I bleed the brakes. God, I can't even speak this morning. And then we can fix that problem. It just makes it better in future if you ever need to bleed the brakes again. Managed to get it out that time. So I'm going to start off today. We've got two 13mm nuts on the back here. I'm going to get them whipped off, get this caliper off and get it inspected. Caliper came off really easy. It does look a little bit crusty like I just said. The inner of this is always going to look weathered because it's exposed to the elements. But there's no actual damage to this seal. It's sealed pretty well across the piston and the piston is moving back very easily. So I'm going to get the big grips now, push this piston back, get rid of these pads down here and then we can get the carrier off. I've took the caliper over here out of the way just so we can get to these Torx bolts on the back here, which are a Torx 55. I might turn the steering and get them with the gun, but I'm going to try and crack them off first. Last time I tried doing this, I think I snapped the Torx bit. So I'm just going to get the small breaker bar now, crack them two bolts off on the back, and then we can remove this carrier, and then we can move on to the disc. That's the pad carrier off. Came off easy enough. Started with the big breaker bar, then worked my way down to a smaller one as I could get it inside the wheel arch gap, and then finished it off with the 1/2 inch ratchet. But now we've got these two Torx bits in the middle. I think they're Torx 30s. Gonna have to clean them out, dig them out a little bit before I take them off. It looks like it's got two screws in. And then hopefully this disc should just pop off. Everything came off pretty easy there. We've got a lot of copper slip around this hub, which I'm going to clean off. I will reapply that around the hub on the mating surface there. Just having a look at the car. Looks like it's had a new spring on it pretty recently. Common problem on the Berlingo, snap front springs, but as it's turning out, they're pretty common on every bloody car. You can see they're a little bit better. Let me just zoom in, sorry. That's the rusty bleed valve I'm talking about. I'll show my arse if that comes out and allows me to bleed the brakes. But now all that's off, we can just quickly get this cleaned up and get the disc put back on and we'll go from there. I've used copper spray on that hub there. I've just been having a look in the manual just to confirm about the Bosch and Lucas calipers. So up to 2002 they are Lucas calipers and brake system, and after 2002 it goes over to the Bosch system. It's just I've been asked this a few times and I didn't actually know the answer. I just thought it was down to whether they had shims or not. But them are the only ones that I've seen, or what should I say, the only one I've actually done disc and pads on. I didn't look on the Mark 1 Berlingo that I had that I ended up scrapping. But yeah, that just clears it up. Anything up to 2002 is Lucas system. Anything after 2002 is a Bosch system. So I've put that on now. I'm going to get the disc on. I'm going to put the little securing screws back in. And then I'm going to move over to the pad carrier. I'm just going to get some emery cloth inside them shim plates there. Clean them all up so they're nice and clean again. And then I'll get that put back on. That's the new disc on, new pads in. I managed to clean these shims up really nice with the emery paper and also using the little wire brush. Just be careful of these rubbers. when you are using a wire brush. You don't want to split them or anything like that, as it'll stop the slide pins from working. Carrier bolts are in on the back. You need to put some blue Loctite on them, or whatever Loctite you've got, or whatever product you use, and they get torqued up to 105 Newton meters, which I've just done with the trusty old torque wrench. So yeah, 105 Newton meters for the carrier bolts, and now we're going to put the caliper back on and get the caliper bolts put back in. They have come with new ones in the pad box, but they've not come with any Loctite on. Usually there's a little blue blob of Loctite already on them, but I'll just re-Loctite them before I put them in, and then we'll get them torqued up as well. Brand new discs and pads are on. These caliper bolts, 27 Newton meters. I use a 3/8 torque wrench for them. The bolts that came out were 13 millimeters, and the new bolts that went in were 12 millimeters. I've double checked this pipe isn't pigtailed. It's gone back in the same way that it should have done. Shouldn't ever put them back pigtailed. Next job is to get this drop link out. Hopefully it doesn't give us too much trouble today. They are pretty straightforward to do. What I'm going to do first is just get the secondary jack underneath and just raise it up, because I've only got one side of the car jacked up. It's not level, so you need to jack it up so the drop link pin, well, the drop pin threads come out easy enough and it's not at an angle, but I'll show you what I mean when I do it in a second. So I've whipped both of them 17mm nuts off, and I'm just going to try and show you what I mean. Like, can you see how that's angled up there? And on this side, it's pretty straight, but that's angled as well. And the problem is that because it's only jacked up on one side, these are like, there's tension in it. So if you just jack it up under the lower arm a little bit, it'll straighten that out. It's hard for me to show you with just one hand, but I'm going to try and do it now with the jack handle. You should see that nut at the bottom start to straighten out. You see? Perfect. And then we can pop that out, bottom one out, and get the top one out as well, and get the new one put in. The lovely new drop link is in. It's surprising how stiff it is compared to the old one, which you can move with your fingers, but I've no doubt it'll loosen off pretty quickly once the weight of the car's been put on it. These nuts, brand new nuts, and they've got like they're a locking nut as well, 40 Newton meters. That's what they get torqued up to. But that's one side done now. I'm going to get rid of this jack, move all the tools around to the other side, pump the brake pedal, get this wheel back on and all that stuff, and then start on the other side. That's the driver's side done and dusted, new drop link on it. Just need to pump the brake pedal now. Bit annoyed, the pads only came with 2 new bolts, so I've had to use the old ones. I've just put some lock thread on them. Really annoyed about that. Going to try and find some new bolts, see if we can just get them separately and put them on. It'll only take 5 minutes to swap them out. But what I'm going to do now, like I just said, pump the brake pedal, and then I'm going to check the reservoir, make sure the fluid is okay. It might need some taking out now it's got new pads. And then I'm going to whip this car around the block and see how it feels now it's got brake pads and new discs on that don't look like they're going to be falling apart. Another good day on the Berlingo. Just thought I'd come up here for the morning and get that job out of the way. I've still got the thermostat to do. I've still got the timing belt and water pump to do, as well as an auxiliary belt. And then we can start cracking on with the rear axle. All the parts have started arriving. I've got them all piled up here, which is going to be super exciting. It's nice that I've done one before and I know what I'm doing with that. We've got the brake fluid reservoir, which needed a little bit taken out of it. Now the new pads are in and the pistons don't come out as much. So that's to the maximum level. Hope you've enjoyed this video today. Still plenty to come, like I've just said. Keep tuning in and I'll see you in the next video.